Morton, wonderful to have you on.
Thank you all.
A little bit of an Arnold Morris set taking you to Checkpoint with Lisa Owen. I'm Wallace Chapman. See you tomorrow, 3:45.
Kei te whakarongo mai koe ki te reo irirangi o Aotearoa. This is Checkpoint on RNZ National. I'm Lisa Owen. Haere aki nei, OMG, the cricket test that frayed nerves and saw workers pull up stumps. Good news at last. Camping out or couch surfing, that's the options facing some displaced Muriwai residents whose homes are in the shadows of unstable cliffs. Among them, an 88-year-old. Is going back even an option? Another day and another road dissolves in the rain. The Napier Taupo highway's stuffed again. The boss of Freightways is live. And bridges, Simon that is, on rebuilding actual bridges and roads without the politics. Plus the big veggie dig into your pockets. Foul weather's already doubling the price of some produce. Don't forget, you can watch us live on the RNZ website.
RNZ News at 5 o'clock. Good afternoon, I'm Evie Ashton. In an unlikely and historic win, the Black Caps have beaten England by 1 run in a dramatic finish to the second cricket test at the Basin Reserve in Wellington. Neil Wagner snared the final wicket, that of Jimmy Anderson.
2 needed here for England. Flick down the left side! Flick down the outside, he's got in! Can you believe it? Wagner has done it! New Zealand win by 1 run! What a stunning test!
More on that match coming up in sport. Wairoa has had its Gabrielle recovery set back weeks as a further 15 houses and businesses were flooded following last night's heavy rain. Deputy Mayor Denise Eaglesome Karekare says the town didn't get much warning of the deluge. She says residents were just starting to see the light and clear the silt before last night's rain further dampened spirits.
We need to get our community back to as normal as we possibly can. So we need all the resources and support that government have got. We need our share of the $250 million that Grant Robertson's been given. And we can decide, let us do this, because we know how to do this ourselves.
With State Highway 2 significantly damaged, the residents of Wairoa are cut off from essential services in Napier and Hastings. Tairāwhiti Civil Defence is still urging people to conserve water. The area is still on reduced flows from the Waipawa plant, though a new pump was expected to arrive from Tauranga today with the hope of getting higher water flows. Civil Defence says it expects water to be high in bacteria for some time, with more rain forecast in the coming weeks. Rainfall overnight led to 15 families evacuating themselves and going to friends and family. Residents in the Gisborne suburb of Mangapapa have spent the day at an evacuation centre after the flooding this morning. Theodosia Niania has lived in her house in Lytton Street for 60 years. It was 6 a.m. when she got up to find water spilling out of the toilet bowl.
When I got there, the water was flowing down onto the floor from the toilet bowl over. It was clean water, but then again it's blocked, the drain outside blocked. So instead of going down the drain, it comes through our toilet.
Theodosia says a look out the window revealed the street flooded shin deep with water, with drains and culverts overflowing. She's headed home this evening to assess the damage. The Prime Minister says health officials are keeping a close eye on COVID-19 cases on the East Coast. More than 400 cases have been reported in Hawke's Bay in the past week, up about 150 compared to the previous 7 days. Wairoa Mayor Craig Little has tested positive, while cases are also confirmed at the Marae and among displaced residents at emergency centre housing. Chris Hipkins says the situation is being monitored.
The feedback that we've had so far is that we're not dealing with a significant increase in COVID-19 cases on the East Coast, but of course that is something that we will keep an eye on. We are concerned about some of the potential health issues associated with the clean-up.
Nationally, the 7-day rolling average of COVID cases is now 1,279, up from last week's figure of 1,160. The extreme weather doesn't appear to have rattled business confidence. ANZ's confidence survey for February still shows a net 43% of respondents expect the broader economy to deteriorate, but that's a 9% improvement since January. In other news, Ukraine's President Zelensky has warned that the situation around the embattled town of Bakhmut is becoming increasingly difficult. He says the Russians are destroying everything that could be used as fortification or defence. Wellington ratepayers face a rate rise of 12.3% from July. It's to help fix leaking pipes and other infrastructure. Christchurch ratepayers, meanwhile, face a 5.68% rise. The final figure will be set after public consultation. In sport. For just the second time in Test cricket history, a match has been won by a single run. New Zealand's beaten England in a nail-biting finish to the second Test at the Basin Reserve in Wellington, dismissing the tourists for 256 when they needed just 258 to win. Starting the day at 48 for 1, the Black Caps snared 4 wickets in the opening session to have the tourists 80 for 5. Joe Root rebuilt England's innings to put them on track for victory, making 95, leaving the tail to finish the job. But Neil Wagner took 4 wickets and held 2 crucial catches to help the home side home. Wicket-keeper Tom Blundell took the final catch off Wagner to dismiss Jimmy Anderson.
Saw it pretty well, and then luckily it went in clean, so pretty happy. When Folksy hit it over Beastie's head, I thought he was going to do it, but like this team has in the past, so we fight to the bitter end.
The win levels the 2-Test series at 1-1 and vindicates all the believers. New Zealand is just the 4th team in Test history to win after being forced to follow on. The former All Whites midfielder Grant Turner, who was part of the first New Zealand team to reach the Football World Cup finals in Spain in 1982, has died. He was 64 and had been battling cancer for the past year. Turner scored an outstanding header in the side's World Cup qualifying win over Australia, and also with this solo effort against Taiwan.
Herbert to Sumner. Cole. Grant Turner flicking in the air. Grant Turner running through. Round his man. There's his shot in the back of the net. That's a goal that only Grant Turner would score. New Zealand 2-0.
That's the news.
Rain, rain.
So the rain woke, I'm sure, everyone up in Gisborne at 3 a.m. It's rain like we've never heard it before.
Go away.
Certainly heavy here. I'm not sure if you can hear the rain hammering the roof of my car, but it is pretty persistent.
Don't come again another day.
We just haven't had a break in this weather to be able to get in and remediate everything. The ground's saturated.
Your daily news mop-up morning report, weekdays from 6 on RNZ National.
We're funded through New Zealand On Air. You're with Lisa Owen next on Checkpoint. Right now, the short forecast from Met Service to midnight Wednesday. Northland, Auckland and Coromandel Peninsula, fine apart from isolated showers. Western areas from Waikato to Wellington, also for Bay of Plenty and the central high country, partly cloudy with isolated showers clearing and becoming fine this evening. Gisborne, Hawke's Bay and Waidudapa, mostly cloudy. Showers in Hawke's Bay and Gisborne, becoming isolated tomorrow morning and fine spells increasing everywhere. For Nelson, Marlborough and Canterbury, fine apart from areas of low cloud or fog morning and night. From Bulla to Fiordland, fine today. Isolated showers developing tomorrow morning. Turning to rain in Fiordland from late morning and in Westland from the evening with thunderstorms possible south of the glaciers. Otago and Southland, fine today. Areas of low cloud or fog tomorrow morning. Becoming cloudy tomorrow afternoon with isolated showers developing. And for Dekohu, Chatham Islands, mostly cloudy with a few light showers. It's 7 minutes past 5. I'll have news headlines and traffic news for you at 20 past 5.
Nā mihi iwi, tēnā koutou katoa, no mai haere mai ki Checkpoint e tēnei rā, ko Lisa Owen tēnei. The Black Caps have done the unthinkable, pulling off one of the most memorable and scarcely believable victories in Test cricket. The side was on its knees against a dominant England just 2 days ago when they were asked to follow on after a disastrous batting collapse. Today, one by one, they knocked over England's batters, winning by just 1 run when fast bowler Neil Wagner took the final wicket. Well, joining us now is Black Caps bowler Matt Henry. Congratulations, Matt. What was it like?
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, no, it was just amazing. I think for us to go into today knowing that we needed to bowl them out and to get it done, I suppose in that fashion, is pretty special.
Pretty special. That's a bit of an understatement. My nerves are shot to pieces. How are yours?
Yeah, no, good. I think we always believed, and I think when Waggy got the ball and he managed to make those couple of breakthroughs, I think we knew that the game was on and that we just had to keep applying pressure. And the way that it unfolded was unbelievable, really. So no, absolutely thrilled.
You said you always believed. Tell us the truth. Did you really always believe? Because it was kind of a bit of a rocky start, right?
No, yeah, I think that, but we also understand that cricket's a very funny game. I think we know the basin as well, and that we knew that getting put back in, that we knew that if we actually stick to what our game plans are and trust in what we do, we'll be okay. And I think we showed that through partnerships that guys applied themselves really well, and the batters gave themselves an opportunity to actually have something to bowl to. And then from our point of view, we knew that England was still going to play their shots, and on day 5 we know that you can put pressure on batters and the opportunities will be there. We just need to be able to take them. So there's definitely belief in our camp. The ebbs and flows of this game's been unreal, but it's just great to be on the winning side of it.
What was the crowd like?
Oh, the crowd's been amazing. The Basin has always been a fantastic crowd here in Wellington, and it was absolutely no different today. I think there was a fair few English, though, to be fair, but the Kiwis definitely stood up too. So it was a great atmosphere, and it's definitely something that we'll always remember. How are you physically? You went off, right? Was your back again? Yeah, no, unfortunately my back just went into a bit of a spasm out of the blue, so that was not ideal considering came in here probably physically feeling the best I have, so it was just an out of the blue thing, but managed to get through it and we're all right now, so that's the main thing. 2 wickets today, you go home happy? Oh, definitely. I think at the end of the day we talked about doing roles and sticking to what we needed at the time, and I think that the ability to bowl from both ends was something that we wanted to try and improve on, just moving into this game. And I think today we showed that when we did apply pressure on both ends that anything can happen, and we managed to do that at a really crucial time, and then Waggy coming on and getting those wickets really just opened it up for us. Hey, not to put too fine a point on it, Neil Wagner looked like he was about to burst a blood vessel. Is he okay? That's Waggy at his best. Yep, no, he's doing okay. Absolutely thrilled for him. I think he's been doing fantastic stuff for a long time, and we know that if you get into a day 5 situation, there's no better person to give the ball to than Neil Wagner, and I think he just showed his class once again. He's an absolute competitor, and he knows how to get the guys across the line, and that's why we absolutely love him. And for him to stand up like he did, to take those crucial wickets, and he really led from the front today. He never says die, that guy, right? He never does. And so, what happens in a situation like that? You, as a bowler, what are you saying to yourself at that point? Oh, well, I think from a bowling group, we've always talked about how we're never out of the match. We know that funny things can happen, and if you can take wickets and swing pressure around, anything can happen. And I think that was something that we pride ourselves on, and even though it may look like you're down and out, we definitely have that inner confidence that we can get the job done. And to have someone like Neil Wagner, I think he just exemplifies that, really, and to come in and get those big wickets at that time, opening up an end, and then we can capitalise on it. So when you were all bowling into the limo and going up Mount Vic, the bowlers, we're just in the change room at the moment. We've got all the family and everyone in there, so it's really nice just having some family time and just I suppose enjoying the occasion. It's a pretty special one for everyone involved, and to get over the line in that fashion, it's definitely will be one to remember. So you're a new dad, so wow, this is the cream on the top, isn't it? Yeah, 100%. It's been an amazing week prior to this test, becoming a dad for the first time, and having a beautiful daughter, Annabelle, and Holly and Annabelle watching today, which was nice, and hopefully she's well behaved, but I'm sure she was absolutely perfect. Really appreciate your time, Matt. Congratulations. People needed some positive news, and you delivered. That is Matt Henry.
Thank you for your time, Black Caps bowler. What a remarkable win. Single-handedly stopped productivity around the country, I can tell you. If our newsroom was an example, everyone around the television. All right, in front of a packed crowd and under blue skies at the Basin Reserve, the Black Caps and their fans dared to dream. Our reporters caught up with some of the fans shortly after the win.
I thought it was fantastic. I just came here on spec, really, just not expecting anything very much. And I've had probably about an hour and a half of the most exciting cricket I've seen for ages.
Not expected, but managed to come through with the win, so it's pretty good.
I was supporting New Zealand, but I was sitting amongst the Barmy Army. It was quite challenging.
Were they gutted to lose?
They were quite good losers, but they had a lot to say about their team's performance, and they thought they should have won.
It was a good game.
Yeah, fantastic game.
Really
it's really test match cricket. For it to get to the 5th day and for it to be on a knife edge with with that finish, it was great. So we nearly did it, but we were just got pipped at the post.
New Zealand did very well in the end. We're a bit gutted to lose. That's so close, but it was a hell of a game. Great game.
Unfortunately, baseball at some stage goes between recklessness and positivity, and we just went a bit too the other way.
Best team won in the end, albeit it breaks my heart to say that. But pleased to see you. Be back.
Oh, sad for England. Not sad. It is 5:15. Kia mau tore mai. Do stay with us. You're listening to Checkpoint on RNZ National. Another day, another disappearing road. This time it's State Highway 5, the Napier-Taupo Road, has slid away in yet more heavy rain. The whole of at least 30 metres opened up overnight and has made the road impassable. Now, post-Cyclone Gabrielle, traffic on the highway was already restricted to Lifeline services and residents, but this latest washout near Glengarry has cut Napier off from the west again. The patchwork of wrecked roads is a major challenge for the country's courier and distribution drivers, with detours adding hours and dollars to their trips in parts of the North Island. Well, today the Prime Minister met with Freightways, the company that oversees some of our largest movers across the network. And CEO Mark Trohere joins me now. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Lisa. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. But how much of a challenge is this posing for you guys?
Yeah, look, it's a significant challenge. It's not different in many ways to some we've had in the past. When you think back to Kaikoura and State Highway 1 closing back then after the earthquakes, but yeah, it's a series of magnitude, and you know, it's Napier, it's Te Raiwhiti, and also getting into Whangarei, and then not forgetting Coromandel. So to have 4 areas at the same time that you're trying to deal with is certainly a big challenge.
Put it in perspective for us. How many kilometres do you reckon you travel a day? How many parcels?
We're doing, look, in terms of those areas there, what I can tell you is we're doing an extra 5,000 kilometres a day. So that's for all of the trucks that we have going into those 4 areas, an extra 5,000 kilometres. So that's massive. And that means you need more drivers, you're doing more hours, it's more cost. Takes longer, your freight arrives a bit later, you have teams ready to deal with it when it arrives rather than when it would normally get there. It's no small undertaking.
Talk to me about the drivers and what that means in terms of coordinating schedules.
Yeah, so we would run down State Highway 5 straight into Napier, and that would work really well with the schedules that we design for our drivers. We're now having to go down to Palmerston North, come up through Dunnyburg and up Highway 2. It adds hours. It means you need fundamentally more drivers. So to make sure you stay within your driving hours, you're adding more drivers into the mix. And as you would know, truck drivers are a pretty scarce commodity at the moment. So our teams have done a great job in recruiting and redeploying resources. But yeah, it's expensive and it's time consuming.
Are you moving some of the drivers to different locations temporarily?
Yes, yep.
So whereabouts?
Well, we're using Palmerston North as quite a key hub. So there's quite a bit of freight now that comes down to Palmy, and then we come back up to Napier from there. Auckland's not so bad into Whangarei. It just takes a few extra hours. So we're adding a few hours on by the detours that you're forced to use. And those detours are almost changing daily, given the state of the roads up north.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, that adds time's money, more fuel, and if you have to put your drivers up, that's extra cost too. So What is it translating to?
It'll be hundreds of thousands over the course of a month, so it's a matter as to how long it goes for. But look, given the state of the devastation down there, we think that'll be a reasonably long haul before you're back on State Highway 5 into Napier.
What are you planning for, Mark, in terms of a return to normal? You think a year away or what?
I think for some of those areas it will be a year, Lisa. Yeah, I think for some areas it will be.
When do you start passing the costs on?
Look, we're thinking about it really carefully. It's challenging. Eventually we had to do something similar with Kaikoura, but what we were able to do was limit it to a pretty small increase. It was about 1%, but we levied it on all of our customers, and it was sort of the easiest way of sharing a bit of pain rather than, punching a particular area. But yeah, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars a month is fairly material.
I'm not being funny. If you're someone in Wairoa, for example, who's ordered a parcel from Auckland, are you ever getting it?
Yeah, no, look, actually the service, so we were the first ones to be back up and operating in those areas. We had a driver of one of our contractors strap a generator to a ute. We got him through a series of checkpoints coming into Napier. It was few phone calls to ministers. There was phone calls to emergency response on the ground. He got turned away 3 times, and then we got him through and we got the branch up and running. We've used helicopters for some freight. We really go out of our way to try and make sure we keep the integrity, if not a morning delivery, but we're trying to get it there next day. So a huge amount of effort going into making sure we can achieve that, because a lot of the product we handle is not so much online shopping, it's pharmaceuticals, urgent parts for power companies, for machinery and all of those types of things.
So it's lifeline stuff?
Look, a lot of it is. Yeah, a lot of it is.
Hey, I know it's probably like asking you to choose your favourite child, but if you have to pick a road that gets fixed first, which one is it?
Oh, it's Taupo Napier. Absolutely. I think just because of the sheer number of vehicles that we run down that particular road, and because of it's a lot of extra kilometres coming into there, so that would take most of the pain away. And then, as I say, you've got delays getting into Whangarei, and it's difficult. But yeah, Taupo to Napier is certainly the biggest issue.
You had a chat to the Prime Minister today. Were you filled with confidence?
Oh, look, we appreciated him and Minister Wood, Minister of Transport, coming in. I think, that was really appreciated that they came and spent a bit of time with us and our teams and a few drivers and got the opportunity just to hear what it was like on the ground. And, they can't give any assurances, and I think it's pretty early days, but, it's nice to be listened to.
Really appreciate your time this evening. Thank you for joining us. That is Mark Trohere, who's the CEO of Freightways. Interesting, adding 5,000 kilometres a day on all those detours. Now, speaking of transport and breaking news, Auckland Transport has just announced its new CEO, Dean Kimpton. He's coming into the job on a fixed-term agreement for 18 months and will start on the 3rd of April. AT Chair Wayne Donnelly says the appointment of Mr Kimpton reflects the need for a fundamental change in approach. Mr Kimpton was previously the Chief Operating Officer at Auckland Council, a board member for Infrastructure New Zealand and Managing Director of a civil engineering firm. In a statement, AT says the board has elected for a fixed-term CEO as he will need to come up to speed quickly and make some crucial decisions for the organisation. It says AT has heard clearly that shareholders and the people of Auckland want them to focus on getting the basics right. It is 21 after 5 and you're with Checkpoint on RNZ National. Homai o whakaaro, we would love your feedback on anything you've heard on the program this evening. Did you put your tools down and watch the cricket? I don't know, Neil Wagner probably heard me yelling from here. It's good to have some good news, isn't it? Let us know your thoughts. Text us on 2101. You can tweet us at checkpointrnz, or you can email checkpoint@rnz.co.nz. Let's go to the headlines now. Ko Evie Ano tēnei.
Residents of Wairoa in Hawke's Bay have been cut off from essential services in Napier, Hastings and Gisborne after torrential rain last night caused further slips and flooding on State Highway 2. Deputy Mayor Denise Eaglesome-Karikari says residents were just starting to see the light and clear the silt before the deluge. Hawke's Bay Emergency Management is opening a free call helpline to make it easier for people to get assistance. Group Controller Ian MacDonald says 2 weeks on from Cyclone Gabrielle, they're shifting from a community-based response to dealing with people's individual concerns. The new helpline will operate 7 days a week. The price of some vegetables, such as kumara and broccoli, has doubled since Cyclone Gabrielle ruined crops. Now there are predictions that flooding has left at least 70% of kumara around Dargaville unharvestable, and some kaipara kumara growers are on the brink of collapse. The Prime Minister says he played down post-cyclone crime in Hawke's Bay because police gave him out-of-date information. Road workers told officers they'd had guns pulled on them. Chris Hipkins says he would have liked more up-to-date reports, but is confident in the information police are now giving him. And the Black Caps have beaten England by 1 run to claim an improbable victory in the second cricket test in Wellington today. It was only the 4th win in the history of test cricket by a team asked to follow on. Those are the headlines. Looking at traffic, Waka Kotahi says from tomorrow morning they're reopening part of State Highway 1 north of Auckland at the Bryn-Derwins. It's a controlled open for northbound vehicles only from 8 a.m. If there is a problem with more slips, they may need to close the road at short notice. And the highways still closed through the central north and east of the North Island are State Highway 2, Waidoa to Whakaki, Whakaki to Nuhaka, Napier to Waidoa, State Highway 5, Eskdale to Taupo, State Highway 35, Tolaga Bay to Ruatoria, and State Highway 38, Waidoa to Lake Waikaremoana. I will have more news headlines and traffic for you at 20 to 6.
Ngā mihi e ho. Future-proofing our massively neglected state highway network should be a priority after Cyclone Gabrielle exposed a significant weak spot, ripping up roads and cutting off social and economic lifelines. That's according to former Transport Minister, now head of the Auckland Business Chamber, Simon Bridges, who concedes it will take large-scale investment and probably a political pact. He joins us now. Kia ora, Simon.
Hey, kia ora, Lisa.
Should we be frightened by how fragile our network has turned out to be?
I wouldn't want to use that word. I think the reality is, if you look at it even today, it's been on the Wakatahi website, in Northland, Coromandel, Gisborne, Tairāwhiti, Hawke's Bay, and all of those places, key roads are out of action. So that's concerning.
So you want, after the patch-up has happened, to have significant maintenance to improve our roading network, but to what level?
Look, I think obviously we're not going to have every road at a kind of a high quality Waikato Expressway sort of a standard, and there'll need to be horses for courses. But I think one of the lessons, and there's many, but one of them is if you look around New Zealand, you look at the Upper North Island, those roads built to that higher specification stood up really well. The ones that weren't at that quality didn't and cut off communities. And so, I don't think this is so much of a funding issue as it is, let's actually plan for the long term and get on and do the right job that these significant communities deserve.
You're talking about the motorway north of Auckland, right? Puhoi, heading towards Puhoi. But that comes at a huge cost, right? 800 million. So money's got to be a factor in this. Can we afford to do what you're suggesting?
Of course you're right, level. I mean, if it's a gravel road, it was already a gravel road out the back box. We're not talking about that. I suppose at a high level, though, I'm saying, what we do need to worry about quality. It is an investment. We don't have to do the old kind of pay as you go. We can do this over time. I think actually the bigger issues, if we look at the here and now and doing this, are kind of capacity and capability ones. Namely, actually, have we got the firms and the workers to do it? It's good to see there's an immigration visa being put into that. But actually, given that it's a short-term visa and the likes of Aussie are just saying actually everyone's going to have a pathway to residency, I worry about that as an issue as well. So there's some big issues here around funding, but more particularly our capacity to do this. When we get around to it, let's do it properly.
So money, how do you think we should pay for this?
Well, the Reserve Bank governor's had a kind of an interesting go at that. Tax more or spend less in other areas. I don't know that I necessarily go along with that. I think given that these are intergenerational investments, borrowing for this is okay. We do have low public debt. And I think that encourages an investment approach that is not penny pinching around these main arterial routes that we need to see.
But it's a very highly political topic, right? It's weaponised in some ways. How do you get around that?
We don't want to see that. I mean, I think there's been an attempt, albeit, might say not entirely successful, to try and have the likes of an infrastructure commission determine these sort of things. I repeat what I've said. I think we should invest well for this. I think we should think about it for the long term, and some of this can be depoliticised.
Yeah, but how? Because that requires parties to agree on big projects, right? And as you know, sometimes parties don't want to give away their point of difference. They don't want to hold hands with the incumbent government and say, yeah, we're on side with you, let's do this.
I hope it's better than that. I think if you think about regional New Zealand as opposed to big metropolitan New Zealand, the reality there is it's only going to be highways at a level. And I sit there and think, actually, there should be cross-party support for doing some of the urgent roads that are required at pace. Special law, I think of Kaikoura, I was involved in that one where it was a special law that cut through some of the red tape. I would be personally surprised and disappointed, as long as the law wasn't overreach, if parties in opposition right now voted against that kind of a law. And then I think it's a question of prioritisation, actually just making sure everyone understands these roads are urgently required to be rebuilt because they are lifelines, and some of those other ones might take a bit longer and not be to the same standard.
Simon, those lifelines that you've talked about there needs to be alternative routes. So are you suggesting, for example, the state highway that runs from Gisborne right the way up the coast, and it's out at the moment, and it's the only option? Should there really be a parallel road that we've got to fall back on?
Not necessarily. I think that the clearer cut cases are a state highway up into Northland, are state highways down through the Waikato into the Bay of Plenty and possibly further south. I think those big trunk routes are actually reasonably clear cut and certainly require the investment. From there, I acknowledge it becomes difficult, but I suppose I really am just saying, let's think long term, let's not penny pinch. These are investments.
Is that a sound argument at a time where some people will be screaming at their radios right now saying that these events are caused by climate change? We shouldn't be encouraging freighting by trucks and driving on roads and building more highways.
There's no doubt that some of what gets rebuilt will change, right, as a result of all of that and climate change. So there will be differences and so on. I think, though, where it gets really tricky, and I'd be very disappointed if, when they talk about sort of managed retreat, it meant different than this, is the farmer who's perhaps farmed somewhere intergenerationally. They haven't expected a high standard road. It's been gravel. But actually they do deserve, I think, as New Zealanders, to get that kind of level of service that they've already had back. And I'd hate to see kind of the arguments around managed retreat being used not to do that.
Appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us. That's Simon Bridges, who is the head of the Auckland Business Chamber there. Interested in your thoughts on that, 2101. He says the cyclone has exposed a really significant weak spot, cutting off communities, and we need to invest more in rebuilding some of these roads better. 2101 on text or tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ. Now, in breaking news, the Health Minister, Aisha Verrill, has just announced the departure of Te Whatu Ora Health New Zealand Board Chair, Rob Campbell. Our Deputy Political Editor, Craig McCulloch, joins us now. OK, fill us in, Craig. What's happened?
Good evening, Lisa. Yes, that didn't take very long, did it? We got a statement just moments ago from the Health Minister, Aisha Verrill, saying that Rob Campbell is out the door. She says, I have raised with Mr Campbell serious concerns about the political nature of his recent social media comments, and she no longer has confidence that he's able to exercise the political neutrality necessary for his role at Te Whatu Ora. So this is not a resignation, this is a sacking. She says, I have decided to exercise my power under Section 36 of the Crown Entities Act to remove him from this role effective immediately. Now, that clause under that section under the Crown Entities Act basically says the responsible minister may at any time and entirely at his or her discretion remove a member of a Crown agent from office. So he is accountable or was accountable to the minister, and she says he has to go.
Any comment from him at this point?
Not at this point. It's very early in the stage. We will be reaching out to find out what he has to say for himself. When we spoke to him yesterday, very briefly, he was standing by his comments on which he made on LinkedIn, critical of the National Party's Three Waters policy. He said that they were made in a private capacity, and that he was, and that it is what it is. Actually, as I'm speaking to you, I have a statement that has arrived into my inbox from Rob Campbell. So I might just have a quick look at it and see what it has to say.
We'll talk quietly amongst ourselves while you open that up and have a quick read. Hot off the press.
Here we go. Let me read it to you, fresh into my inbox. It says, I have been advised that I have been removed from my position as chair of Te Whatu Ora. My view is that this is an inappropriate reaction to statements made in my private capacity regarding a National Party policy statement on water reforms. He says, I have spoken to Christopher Luxon, who has accepted my apology for any personal offence my statements may have caused. He accepted my apology. I have also apologised to Minister Verrill for any difficulty which my statements may have caused for her and to the government. He goes on to say, in my discussion today with Minister Verrill, I have emphasised my strong commitment to the kaupapa of the Pai Ora legislation and the work which Te Whatu Ora and our partner Te Aka Whai Ora are doing to implement that legislation. I have devoted huge energy and time and involvement to that end. I am disappointed that I will not be working directly with the thousands of health sector staff, patients and whānau with whom I've been actively engaged. My support for them is undiminished. The principle of working in Te Reti partnership to achieve equity in the lives of all New Zealanders is core to my beliefs, and I make no apology for that. So once again, he's saying this is an inappropriate reaction, in his view, to the statements he made.
Yeah, he's doubling down, no doubt about it. The fact that he has spoken to Christopher Luxon and got a personal apology, does that matter? Because it would still be a thorn in the side of the government, would it not? Further down the track, it'd be brought back up again and again.
Indeed, and that was the point all along that has been made. There's a very critical reason why these people in these positions are required to remain politically impartial, and that is that there could be a change in government, and if that is to be the case, you would expect whoever is in charge to continue to work under that new government. Otherwise, they would have to completely wipe the slate clean every time. The fact that he has spoken to Christopher Luxon.
Just to carry on with the breaking news, Craig, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but on the line we actually have Rob Campbell. So thank you very much, Craig, and we'll go now to Rob Campbell. Rob, kia ora, can you hear me?
Kia ora, Lisa, yes I can.
Can you explain to me what happened this afternoon?
Well, I've received a letter from the Minister which responded to a letter from my lawyers indicating that she has removed me from this position as Chair of Te Whatu Ora. I think that's a mistake and an overreaction to the statements I made in a private capacity, but nevertheless that's what she's done.
Why do you think it's a mistake and an overreaction?
Well, I think I am entitled to make comments as a private citizen, which I did in the LinkedIn post, which has caused her apparently a concern. And secondly, the suggestion is that I've somehow got offside with the opposition, which, given that I spoke to Christopher Luxon earlier today, we discussed the issues. I made an apology to him for any personal offence he had taken. He accepted that apology. We had a very nice discussion about it, so I don't believe there's any issue there. I've seen Richard Prebble from the ACT Party saying that he believes I have the right to make statements of this kind. So it's a little bit hard to see who I've offended other than the Minister.
Is it a matter of offence, Rob, or actually sticking to protocol? Because you say these were private comments in a personal capacity, yet you put them on a social media platform.
Yeah, I did, and we're entitled to do that in a private capacity. If there's been a lot of talk about this code of conduct for Crown Entity board members, and if you actually read that, it notes that we are allowed to make comments in our private capacity, provided it doesn't erode public trust in the entity we're representing. It's very hard to see how making a comment about a Three Waters policy has eroded any public trust in Te Whatu Ora.
Do you actually believe those are private comments, though, on a forum that so many people can see and disseminate?
They're public comments, but made in a private capacity. I didn't make those statements as Chair of Te Whatu Ora. and that was perfectly obvious to anyone who read the statement. It was made as Rob Campbell, director, but not director of a number of agencies.
Aren't you always in that position, chair of Te Whatu Ora? Always. Like the Prime Minister's never not the Prime Minister. You're never not the chair of Te Whatu Ora.
Well, I always have to have regard to the interests of Te Whatu Ora, and I don't see anything in the statements I made which was in any way damaging to Te Whatu Ora, which is the point in the Code of Conduct, which recognises that people who hold positions like mine do have a private capacity in which they're entitled to talk, and that's what I did.
Do you think your comments in any way showed political bias or partisanship?
They showed my political position, and there's nothing in the Code of Conduct which suggests that you shouldn't. I mean, I don't know if you've read the Code of Conduct, but it starts by talking about personal integrity, and it lists we are honest and open, we are fair, we speak up. So it's hard to see why someone feels that I'm wrong for doing what I do.
So has the Prime Minister got it wrong too, because he wasn't too happy with your comments?
No, absolutely. He's completely misinterpreted the Code of Conduct and my actions.
And has the Health Minister spoken to you directly, or did you just receive an email/letter?
I spoke to the Minister on Sunday, where she did not raise this issue and in fact congratulated me for some work I was doing. I spoke to her on Monday, where she did not raise this issue at all, and then again on Monday afternoon when it appeared to have become an issue, I spoke to her again this morning. She has refused to accept my apologies and my explanations.
So just to be clear here, Rob, you are utterly unapologetic for the comments that you made, the forum that you put them on, and you believe that the Prime Minister and the Health Minister are completely wrong in their interpretation of these events. Is that a fair summary?
Yes, I am. I have apologised to Christopher Luxon for any personal offence he took, and he's completely accepted that. The Minister is in some different category where she appears to feel she should not accept an apology. I can't answer that for her.
Did you apologise to the Prime Minister too?
I haven't spoken to the Prime Minister ever.
So do you think you're going to take this matter further? Is there legal action on the cards? Is that an option open to you, Rob?
Well, the letter that we sent to the Minister today does draw attention to the fact that the actions fall outside of natural justice and are actionable. Whether we take any action, we'll talk about when we've been able to regather.
So you're not ruling it out at this point?
Oh, it's not something to threaten, but it's one possible line of action. Yes.
Do you get any kind of exit package here? Are you gone immediately? What's the deal? Do you get paid out, Rob?
I haven't thought about that, and frankly, I haven't been paid for this role since I think about October, Lisa. So it's not an issue of money.
Yeah, but I mean, in terms of taxpayers, people will be interested.
Yeah, of course not. There's no way I'd get it. I wouldn't ask for a payout, and I doubt I'd get one. I wouldn't even dream of asking for one.
You mentioned that the Health Minister congratulated you on a particular piece of work. What was that about? What was she ringing to compliment you about?
It was something we were working on over the weekend that was unrelated to this, and I just make the point that she was clearly satisfied with my performance as of 3:57 on Sunday afternoon.
You've lost your job, Rob, so there's no difficulty with telling me. What was the piece of work? They can't sack you for this.
Look, it was some work to do with the Dunedin Hospital, but what it was is not that important, but she thanked me for the success of the work we'd done on it.
So what do you think's happened here? Are you just a political hot potato?
My view is that there is a desire on the part of the government to back away from co-governance and working in partnership with Māori, and that was the piece that they were concerned about that I raised in relation to the National Party statement. And I'm completely committed to the kaupapa that I undertook when I took on this role under the Paeora legislation. So the principle of working in treaty partnership to achieve equity is core to my beliefs. I'm not backing off that, and I won't make an apology for it.
Do you stay with the EPA, or are you gone altogether?
I've got no reason to think this impacts my role with the EPA.
And your comments just then, Rob, I mean, are you burning down the house on your way out?
No, I don't think so. The legislation that I have been enjoying to work on is based on treaty partnership between Te Whātua and Te Aka Whātua. I'm maintaining that. My sense is that this is becoming more sensitive for the government, and they don't like the tone of my support for that or opposition to those who would try to tear it apart. And I'm not apologising for that.
Rob, I'm slightly confused by something, and maybe you can clarify. How come you're not good enough for Te Whatu Ora, but it's okay to be at the EPA?
Well, that's for someone else to decide, not for me. I mean, no issue's been raised with me in relation to the EPA. It may be, I don't know.
Appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us. That's Rob Campbell, who, well, he's the former chair of Te Whatu Ora Health New Zealand Board after getting a Don't Come Monday notice from Aisha Verrill there. It is 17 minutes away from 6, and you're with Checkpoint on RNZ National. Homai o whakaaro, we would love your feedback on anything you've heard on the programme this evening. Do get in touch. You would have heard then Rob Campbell has been dismissed, sacked from Te Whatu Ora as the chair there after getting a notice from Aisha Verrill. He's doubling down on his comments. What do you reckon? 2101. You can tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ or email checkpoint@rnz.co.nz. On a happier note, did you watch the cricket? Wasn't that a thrill? You can let us know your thoughts on that too. 2101. And Evie has been patiently waiting with the headlines. Ko Evie anō tēnei.
It's a newsy kind of news night, isn't it? Ousted Chair of Health New Zealand, Rob Campbell, is continuing to defend his actions after being removed from his role by the Health Minister this evening. Dr Aisha Verrill says she no longer has confidence that Mr Campbell is able to exercise the political neutrality necessary for his role at Te Whatu Ora. Mr Campbell told Checkpoint it's a mistake and an overreaction to comments he made as a private citizen about National's Three Waters policy. Former Transport Minister Simon Bridges has told Checkpoint future-proofing the neglected state highway network should be a priority. Mr Bridges, who's now head of the Auckland Business Chamber, says it's an investment and can be depoliticised. The price of some vegetables, such as kumara and broccoli, has doubled since Cyclone Gabrielle swept through New Zealand. Supermarkets are warning that high kumara prices could hang around until next February's harvest. The cyclone flooded large swathes of land around Dargaville, and there are predictions at least 70% of kumara will be unharvestable. In other news, the Wellington City Council has passed a 12.3% rates increase effective from July. The city's mayor, Tori Whānau, says she knows things are tough, but infrastructure needs improvements now. And the Christchurch City Council's draft budget for the coming year proposes an overall rates increase of 5.68%. The draft annual plan will go out for public consultation on March the 10th. Those are the headlines. Looking at traffic, Waka Kotahi says from tomorrow morning at 8 a.m, they are reopening the northbound side of State Highway 1 north of Auckland at the Brynduans. But travel under advisement, it may have to close again at short notice because of slips. So they'll be watching that very closely. I will have news and weather for you at 6 o'clock.
Kia ora rā, Evie. It is 14 minutes away from 6 and you're listening to Checkpoint on RNZ National. It is time for the business news, a little late but worth waiting for. Ko taku hoa e naenei, ko Nona Peltier, because Nona's joined me in the studio. OK, Nona, there's been a pick-up in business confidence. Ooh, what are the numbers?
Well, they're a little bit more positive, still pessimistic somewhat, but an improvement of, say, 9 points from January to a net 43%, still pessimistic about the broader economic conditions. But again, they've also expecting that their own prospects are going to be a little bit better than they were previously thought. A net 9.2% of firms expected to be worse off. These are improved numbers. I know they're still negative. But the other thing is that inflation...
There's less negativity.
Less negativity. Inflation expectations, though, have been stubborn around 6%, not surprising, with annual inflation around 7%. And this is a broader theme that we're seeing right across all sorts of companies.
Okay, now, speaking of which, high costs eating into the profits of fast food operator restaurant brands. What's it saying? Because I imagine this is typical of many big operators.
Yeah, except in this case. So restaurant brands, they have KFC, Taco Bell, Carl's Jr. and Pizza Hut franchise. And they operate across the Pacific, California, Australia, New Zealand. Their profit fell, I think, 38%. Yep. 38% drop in their full year profit, and that was partly because of COVID affecting them early on in 2022, but also these inflationary costs. Now, I had a chat with the chief executive, Russell Creedy. He says that the one thing that gives them hope is they had really strong sales. Sales rose 16%. That's a very positive sign in a downturn. And he said that the company's in a good place to recover when the economy does, and this is what he had to say.
The reality is we can't become part of the inflationary problem. Our consumers don't have a forever increasing paycheck, so we have to operate in an environment where our consumers are getting squeezed, we're getting squeezed. You know, I'd like to use the term, sometimes you just got to suck it up and wait for the cycles to turn.
Oh, there you go. Suck it up. That's what he says. And anyways, the market didn't mind because they saw their share price rise 4.3% today. So his outlook about absorbing some of these costs apparently isn't a big deal at all because they have a very positive outlook.
Okay, get your calculator out. Give us some more numbers.
All right, so the NZX Top 50 Index, it rose more than 0.8% today. A gain of 101 points to 11,895. The New Zealand dollar up just a little bit, 61.6 US cents, 91.5 Australian, 51.1 pence. That's your business for today.
All business. Thank you, Nona. Ka kite. Nona Peltier there with business news. Some Muriwai residents are calling a makeshift campground home while they wait in limbo to find out when or if they'll ever be allowed to return home. Some have undamaged homes, but slips near their homes mean they've had to evacuate. Among those forced to evacuate is an 88-year-old man who's left his home of 50 years and is now waiting to hear what happens next. He and many more are staying with local families who've opened up their homes. Muriwai was the hardest hit region in Auckland. 2 firefighters lost their lives and around 200 homes have been red or yellow stickered. Our reporter Lucy Sear has been in Muriwai to talk to those living in limbo.
Dozens of camper vans and tents are parked at the beach campground, a makeshift setup for those displaced. Many were evacuated at short notice and had only a 30-minute window to return to pick up essentials a week after the cyclone. Jay Brown, his partner and their teenage daughter have been taking refuge here in a camper van since their home, despite being undamaged, lies opposite a slip and has been deemed unsafe to live in. He says there's been little information from officials on how long they'll be in limbo for.
We've got a red sticker, nothing wrong with our place, we know the road's fine to get to it. So what are people in our situation waiting for? Are we waiting for the cliff face to settle down? Are they still finding there's movement? And if that is the case, it'd be great if they just let us know.
When Friday's downpour hit, the campground was flooded. A mattress in the extended tent was floating on water. Mr. Brown says he knows this isn't a long-term solution and is worried about eventually having to rent a place and pay a mortgage for a house they can't return to.
I'm hopeful about keeping the house, but in saying that, there's no real information for me to build that hope on.
88-year-old Siegfried Walsack and his wife were evacuated from their home of 50 years the morning after the cyclone brought down a slip nearby. They've been staying with locals and are frustrated that temporary accommodation services haven't called them back to find them a longer-term place to stay.
We can't sit all day at home and wait for them to ring us up, you see. They should have a bit, somebody in charge, and there's nobody in charge there really, you know. They push it on to somebody else.
National Manager of Temporary Accommodation Services, Al Bruce, says more than 800 households in Auckland have registered for help, but about 100 who registered more than 5 days ago are yet to be contacted. He says they're aware of the severe impact on Muriwai and the need for medium to long-term accommodation. Meanwhile, others are trying to stay optimistic. Muriwai resident Tina Stevens and her family of 4 kids, 2 cats and a dog hunkered down in their camper van the night of the cyclone after their house was flooded.
We've had a couple of little bits flowing off the roof, as you can see, and I've got a blunt umbrella. Totally working, keeping the rain out. And so, it's been a journey with 3 cyclones in the caravan.
She says there's been a lot of support from the wider community.
Everyone's just been great, and we've got so much food and, people dropping off cooked food so they don't have to cook, and, Waimaku School doing school lunches for the kids.
But Ms Stevens says the Muriwai community will be forever changed after the cyclone.
There's been 2 deaths, so that alone is, change of community to start with, let alone, all the kids that have been displaced in schools, and it's changed forever for sure, and especially for those that may never be able to go back to their homes.
Meanwhile, at the local surf club, donations of clothes, linen and food have continued to pour in for families in need. A group of about 40 local residents have been helping out, distributing supplies and lending an ear to distressed families. Volunteer Emma Farry says it's been heartening to see many locals open up their homes for those displaced by the cyclone.
There was 14 people in one house that was, they were coming here, and we had to force the food on them because everyone thinks that, oh no, someone's worse off than me. So we basically, Anne and I are just forcing food on people because some people are feeding 14 people, some people have got 10.
Prime Minister Chris Hipkins says the Muriwai community have more uncertainty ahead of them. He says the land there continues to shift and that they're still waiting on advice from geotechnical specialists.
Marlborough Boys College is searching for a rock star, but not for its music department. After looking unsuccessfully for an inspiring leader for its technology department, the school is now pulling out all stops and is crowdfunding for the role. Joining me now is the college principal, John Kendall. Hi, John.
Tēnā koe, Lisa.
Tell me who you are looking for. Describe this person to me.
Yeah, look, we've already got rock stars here at Marlborough Boys College. We're probably just looking for a lead singer. To be honest, in terms of our technology teacher, to pull in all those aspects of what technology looks like today. But we're a traditional boys' school, so we want to be able to provide pathways into industry given the area that we've got. So that's what we're after. We want someone that can really bring life to our vision, because we consider ourselves to be, a community of excellence, and we see, hey, there is a need here, and we're after that person that really wants to drive technology in our community and support boys into traditional pathways, as well as, designing apps and media studios and becoming the next TikTokers of influence and the like.
Yeah, so John, for those of us where tech was building a mug holder or something similar, I mean, these days it's what to you?
Well, I think it's very vast in terms of, we're using new models, software, but ultimately we're looking at providing or looking for solutions to problems. So we just, have to look at the recent, weather events. That's going to change forever how we build here in Aotearoa. So for us, it is vast and wide, but it's basically looking around in the curriculum, looking for solutions to real-life problems.
So why is it so hard to find someone who fits the bill?
Well, look, like I said, Lisa, we've got some pretty special staff here at Marlborough Boys College, but it's finding someone who can come in and join the team, because they are very hard to find technology teachers, a bit like te reo Māori teachers, very parallel in terms of finding those specialist teachers here. So for a lot of secondary schools, we go offshore because they're still training technology teachers offshore, and a lot do come in. So they're just sought after right throughout the motu, throughout the country.
So have you had a few applications, just not someone who is the right fit?
Yeah, we have, but like I say, partnering with our community, with the Chamber of Commerce, they see it creates a win-win because given the area that we're in with viticulture, agriculture, aquaculture, aviation here with Airbus, we want to be able to provide pathways for our boys into industry. So it's the mix of a new technology that's, here already. Our students coming through, are using software like CAD, 3D printers. They're already using it. So it's the best of both worlds, and we do need a rock star for that.
So, John, the businesses, the plus for them is they get young men who are interested in this kind of tech who train up and potentially work back in the community. So, in return, you are crowdsourcing money to fund this, right? Tell us what you are asking people to do and what the money is for.
Well, industry have come to us, so they see the need for future boys to enter their companies to be the next builders, electricians, plumbers, etc. So it's creating for us the win-win. What we need is obviously to attract that person, and it is remunerating them to allow them to be released over, it's a short-term solution for us to enable them to be released as a head of faculty in technology to really set up what we're after in terms of catering for a new direction in technology, but also ensuring that we're looking after young men that will, work and live and contribute to our community, one of the best communities in New Zealand, here in Marlborough.
Ngā mihi, John. Thank you so much for your time. That is John Kendall, who is the principal of Marlborough Boys College. As he mentioned there, they're crowdfunding for that role, and they're looking for someone who's a bit of a rock star, he reckons. Or what did he say? Lead singer. He'd be happy with the lead singer. Let's get to some of your feedback now on the Black Caps. This person, Brian, says, yesterday, Jessie Mulligan said stay optimistic about the cricket. Evie's nodding. She said that to me before. Jessie was the only believer. He was right. Please ask him what tomorrow's lotto numbers will be, says Brian. I'm on to it, Brian. I'm not sure I'll share them with you, though, but yep. Another person says it was just fantastic. I'm not a cricket fan, but I was gripped by it in a state of ecstasy. We were gripped by it here. I might be wrong, but I get the impression Lisa might be a cricket fan. No, Lisa likes winning, though, when we play sport. So I was huddled around the television with everyone, screaming just a little bit. And like I said, drop in productivity, I bet, if we could measure it around the country. On Simon Bridges and his thoughts on rebuilding the roads and making us more resilient on the roads. A lot of you are saying he didn't mention railways. Someone else says, why put money into roads when rail is the transport of the future? That from Don. And Brian says, nothing can freight like rail. Bridges didn't mention rail once, another listener says. And this one, the government should stop spending on cycleways and put the money to fixing these broken regional roads.
RNZ News at 6 o'clock. Ngā mihi o te pō. Good evening. I'm Evie Ashton. The former chair of Health New Zealand, Te Whatu Ora, has hit out at the Health Minister after being abruptly sacked from the role this afternoon. The Health Minister, Aisha Verrill, announced the axing in the last hour, saying she didn't have confidence Rob Campbell could remain politically neutral. It comes after Mr Campbell publicly attacked a National Party policy online over the weekend. Speaking to Checkpoint, Mr Campbell said the sacking was an inappropriate overreaction to comments he made in a private capacity.
I have apologised to Chris Blackson for any personal offence he took, and he's completely accepted that. The Minister is in some different category where she appears to feel she should not accept an apology. I can't answer that for her.
Rob Campbell said he's considering whether to take any legal action as recourse. The Black Caps have beaten England by 1 run to claim an improbable victory in the second cricket test in Wellington this afternoon. It was only the 4th win in the history of test cricket by a team asked to follow on. Black Caps captain Tim Southey told Spark Sport the win was one of the best he'd ever been involved in.
First 2 days England were class, but I think the belief in the group and the just trusting what we're doing as a side is still there, and I think we just hung tight, and I think it was just a typical sort of Kiwi sort of scrapping effort over the last 3 days.
The win means the 2-match series has ended in a 1-1 draw, with England having won the first test in Mount Maunganui by 267 runs. Hawke's Bay Emergency Management is moving from a rapid relief response to now dealing with individuals' needs as the Cyclone Gabrielle clean-up continues. Civil Defence announced today that a free call helpline was being launched to make it easier for people to get assistance. The number is 0800 117 672. That's 0800 117 672. Civil Defence Controller Ian MacDonald says the last 2 weeks have been frustrating for everyone involved, the community, first responders and those coordinating the response.
It's been a really challenging 2 weeks, I have to say, but we are making progress, and this 0800 number and the coordination around that is one example of that progress. Unfortunately, the weather is not helping, and we will continue to work on access issues, power, those sorts of things as best we can.
A Hawke's Bay woman says every time she hears rain on the roof now, she fears the worst. Vicky Wire and Wayne Melling have a lifestyle block south of Napier at Awatoto. It was swamped when the Ngaruroro and Tutaikuri rivers burst their banks during Cyclone Gabrielle. Vicky Wire says today's rain was the last thing they needed.
Every time the rain comes down, it's like, oh my gosh, are we going to be able to carry on? We don't know if this water's going to subside. We don't know if what they're doing with the drains, the rivers.
She says they're getting by as a unit and have good days and bad. The Māori Development Minister says a new short-term relief package is just the start of filling the gaps needed for Māori. The $15 million fund will help pay equipment needed for the clean-up, storage for food and taonga, as well as enabling whānau order commissioning agencies to manage and coordinate responses to the cyclone. Willie Jackson says Māori have the ability to manage their communities in recovering from the cyclone, but the package will help provide the resource.
We need to get to Māori providers because a lot of our people, and we've seen it here, they know how to get to our people. A lot of our providers know how to get to our people really quick. So it was important just to provide some special funding for Māori at this time.
3 regional parks in the Auckland region will be reopened tomorrow. The Aitu Creek, Tawharanui and Whenua regional parks were each closed by flooding. Auckland Emergency Management says some risks still remain for visitors and some tracks will be closed. It suggests people avoid walking directly under trees. 3 more parks will be reopened over the following month. The extreme weather over the past few months doesn't appear to have rattled business confidence. ANZ's Business Confidence Survey for February showed a net 43% of respondents expect the broader economy to deteriorate. That's up 9 points from January. Chief Executive Sharon Zollner says the extreme weather hasn't knocked the general trend of improvement.
I would say there's certainly no evidence that those cyclones have derailed confidence in the broader economy, which makes sense. I mean, you're talking about a relatively small number of households and firms getting very, very severely impacted, as opposed to a wider number of firms and businesses.
Sharon Zollner expects construction and manufacturing to increase as the regions clean up, especially in the Hawke's Bay. Councillors have finalised the Christchurch City Council's draft budget for the coming year, which will now be put out for public feedback. A rates rise of 5.68% is proposed. Christchurch Mayor Phil Major says the council has worked hard to keep the proposed rates increase low, and the cost of living crisis is front of mind. And the British Prime Minister and the head of the European Commission have hailed a revised deal over a long disputed part of the Brexit agreement as opening a new chapter in relations. Rishi Sunak and Ursula von der Leyen met to finalise the agreement over changes to the Northern Ireland Protocol. The BBC's Jonathan Blake reports.
In Windsor, Rishi Sunak and the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen claimed their agreement was an historic breakthrough that marked a turning point for Northern Ireland and UK-EU relations. The Prime Minister said it would ensure smooth trade, using green and red lanes to separate goods staying in Northern Ireland with those destined for the Republic of Ireland. Sovereignty would be restored, he said, with the so-called Stormont Break, which could stop new EU laws applying in Northern Ireland.
That's the news.
At the end of weeks-long illegal occupation at Parliament, there was violence, rage and chaos. It's almost a year since the anti-mandate protest was broken up by police. Boiling Point, a new documentary from RNZ, is a comprehensive account of what happened that day. It includes previously unseen footage of the shocking events on March 2nd, 2022. Go to rnz.co.nz/boiling point to learn more. The documentary, presented by me, Corin Dan, is out on Thursday.
You're back with Lisa Owen next on Checkpoint. Right now, the short forecast from Met Service to midnight Wednesday. Northland, Auckland and Coromandel Peninsula, fine apart from isolated showers. For western areas from Waikato to Wellington, also Bay of Plenty and the Central High Country, partly cloudy with isolated showers, clearing and becoming fine this evening. Gisborne, Hawke's Bay and Wairarapa, mostly cloudy, showers in Hawke's Bay and Gisborne, becoming isolated tomorrow morning and fine spells increasing everywhere. Nelson, Marlborough and Canterbury, fine apart from areas of low cloud or fog morning and night. From Bulla to Fiordland, fine today, isolated showers developing tomorrow morning, turning to rain in Fiordland from late morning and in Westland from the evening, with thunderstorms possible south of the glaciers. Otago and Southland, fine today. Areas of low cloud or fog tomorrow morning, becoming cloudy tomorrow afternoon with isolated showers developing. And for Te Kohu, Chatham Islands, mostly cloudy, a few light showers. It's 7 minutes past 6. I'll have news headlines for you at 6:30.
Ngā mihi Evie, no mai hoki mai, this is Checkpoint, ko Lisa Owen tēnei. Hawke's Bay residents are struggling with the mental impact of relentless rains and flooding. It's rained on all but 3 days since Cyclone Gabrielle cut a swathe through the region, and heavy rain overnight caused more flooding in Wairoa in northern Hawke's Bay. Our reporter Robin Martin is in Hawke's Bay.
A woman fled her rural Wairoa home today after a heavy downpour caused a stream to flood near a home on Maramoko Road. Her neighbour, Fenton Wilson, said she called him about rapidly rising water about 6:30 this morning. He and his wife took her to shelter at their place.
Got out to my truck, holy heck, we could see what was happening. So we went down and I managed to shift the tractor, and then it just kept rising and came up under a house. It didn't actually get into a house, but it went into all the sheds. She's okay, but, it just kept coming up. It was just incredible. Never seen anything like it.
Fenton Wilson says the water has receded, but with the hills already sodden, any rain is dangerous. He says it's been a traumatic experience after the last fortnight. Wairoa's Deputy Mayor Denise Eaglesham-Karikari says the rain today was worse than during Cyclone Gabrielle, and 2 people were evacuated from Freiburg Street after stop banks failed.
We were starting to see the light. We were starting to clear the silt and pick up all the rubbish. And now people who have been doing all that work in their homes, it's now mud again, and it's probably a lot harder to shift because it's not solid, it's running.
Denise Eaglesham-Karikari says Wairoa needs support from the government to reconnect roads and put displaced whānau back in their homes. Meanwhile, over at Awatoto, south of Napier, Wayne Melling and Vicky Wire are wading into their property. More rain is the last thing they needed.
Like I woke up, I think it was like 3 o'clock this morning, and you could hear it raining pretty hard, so yeah. It was a little bit worrying. I was sort of like, we're going to come back and are we even going to be able to get into our properties so we can carry on? But yeah.
And for you Vicky, what goes through your mind? How do you feel?
Well, how do I feel? I'm still pretty gutted. All our life is gone. It's sitting in rubbish piles. Every time the rain comes down, it's like, oh my gosh, are we going to be able to carry on? We don't know if this water's going to subside. We don't know if what they're doing with the drains, the rivers. That's, it's a big thing. It's a really big thing.
Vicky says they're getting through things as a unit and have good days and bad. Wayne's open to some outside help.
One of the guys out at Bayview was organising the mental health support, and they said they were going to go from, I think they said they were going to spend like a week there, and then they were going to go over to Puketap as well. So hopefully they probably won't forget about us, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully they don't forget about us.
Nehana Sargent is surveying the damage at his home while pumps clear water from warehouses nearby. He admits hearing the rain last night was unsettling.
It has caused a lot of anxiety. I'm sure that's not just for me, but everybody who's been affected in some way by this by what's gone on here. We can't change how nature works, but yeah, it does have an effect, not a positive effect.
Do you get frightened?
Well, I guess that's where the anxiety comes in, because you don't know what tomorrow's going to look like, whether we've done all this, got all this furniture out of here and all this rubbish building up and stuff and like that. What if it all keeps going?
Nehana Sargent says although his situation is bad, he's not asked for mental health support. Meanwhile, Met Service is warning that today's rainfall could add another 40 millimetres in the region that has copped 342 millimetres since the cyclone.
And that was Robin Martin reporting. The relentless rain around Gisborne has finally eased and families evacuated this morning from Mangapapa are looking forward to returning home. 15 homes were evacuated and council crews have been clearing drains and culverts since first light. Our reporter Kate Green is in Gisborne with the story.
Tare Niania has been evacuated 3 times in 3 weeks, twice in Wairoa and again this morning in Mangapapa. The first time in Wairoa came as a bit of a surprise.
I was washing my car for the first time. I had the energy to wash my car. And then I saw all this debris and I thought, the council must be... I thought they were clearing the roads and all that dirt, mucky thing was from the waters.
It wasn't the council. The Wairoa River had burst its banks. A policewoman told her she had only a minute to pack a bag. Shortly after, they were evacuated from the evacuation centre as well. When Ms Niania returned for her car hours later, it was full of water, but she drove it back to the second evacuation centre.
Instead of going inside, I thought, no, I was bailing out all this water and everybody. These 2 people came and said, no, drop everything, you've got to go inside, the thing. I said, no, I'm not going anywhere. My car's flooded and I've got to get the water out. I never thought of insurance as all I saw. I need to get the water out to save my car.
Since then, Ms Niania has been through hell and high water for her little Toyota. The valets in Wairoa lost their equipment in the flood, so she drove to Gisborne to stay with her sister-in-law and get it professionally cleaned.
The person who assessed the car said, yes, you need to get this done, the valet, get it valeted, because otherwise, if you're too late, you can't get all that smell and thing out.
With its former owner a mechanic, she knows she won't get one as good for the price. She certainly wasn't expecting another evacuation in Gisborne. Her sister-in-law, Theodosia Niania, has lived in her house in Lytton Street for 60 years. It was 6 a.m. when she got up to find water spilling out of the toilet bowl.
When I got there, the water was flowing down onto the floor from the toilet bowl over. It was clean water, but then again it's blocked, the drain outside blocked, so instead of going down the drain, it comes through our toilet.
A look out the window revealed the street flooded shin deep with water as drains and culverts overflowed.
Very deep. My granddaughter had to wade through the water to bring the car right up by the steps so we can jump in.
The sisters have spent the day at the House of Breakthrough, which reopened as an evacuation centre this morning. This evening, they'll head back to the house to check out the damage. Lance Rickard is the assistant pastor at the House of Breakthrough. When he drove in just after 5 this morning, the water level on Ormond Road was 2/3 of the way up his tyres.
I think 4 o'clock, saw the fence, rang our person who lives just across the road. They got to her at 4:30 and then they came in and opened up. So there was 15 families to be evacuated here. However, a lot of them went to their own whānau.
Dave Wilson, the council's director of Lifelines, says in the past 2 weeks the stormwater system has taken a hammering. Teams have been out removing blockages in culverts since first light.
The volume of water we're having, debris keeps moving and it starts to find its choke point, and that's when we start to have issues. We've got teams working their way across the stormwater network across the city, but with the rain we keep having new things popping up, and it's really difficult for us to be able to keep on top of it all.
With the water now subsided, Gisborne residents are hoping for a peaceful night's sleep, with no rain on the roof.
To Australia now, where it's been a year since catastrophic flooding inundated parts of Queensland and New South Wales, destroying homes and devastating communities. Some people are still living in temporary accommodation or struggling with homelessness, while others are only just moving back into their homes. Remarkable tales of survival are mixed with the huge loss and the painful recovery, as the ABC's Stephanie Smale reports.
It's been a year since Aidan Ricketts used his tinny to save his neighbours' lives as floodwaters ripped through Lismore. He spoke to the World Today on his boat the day after. The street still rivers at record flood heights.
There's a lot of flow. Hang on, we're going to hit a post. Watch out. Oi. All right.
We helped our neighbours who'd gone into their ceiling break out of the roof by grinding the tin from the inside, and we came and helped kick the tin in because they couldn't quite push it outwards, and got them out onto the roof. They got picked up by another boat, and sometime after that their entire house toppled into the floodwaters and washed away.
He's now reflecting on what crossed his mind as the crisis unfolded and celebrating the local rescue effort that saved so many lives.
I looked out across the town and thought, how many people are trapped in ceilings? And there's no way I could possibly get to all of them. And somehow in my head I thought, what's the death toll going to be? And I expected it to be at least sort of 70, if not more. And the fact that it turned out, I think, being 4 or 5 is truly remarkable.
Claire Mason and her teenage daughter have spent the past 12 months in temporary homes across the region, including a caravan in their driveway during winter and staying in the empty shell of their house.
Stripped walls, an electric blanket, one mattress, and my daughter and I staying in there. Yeah, we had a plumbed in bath under the house, so we were kind of bathing down there.
The repairs are finally done now and they're in the process of moving back in.
There's a lot of pride, joy, happiness, and gratitude, for all of the people that have helped me as well. I haven't done it on my own. There's been a lot of volunteers that have helped me. But a lot of sadness as well, because I look around and, it's not consistent. Other people are experiencing worse case scenarios.
Claire's brother has moved to Ballina after decades of living in Lismore because he can't face the trauma of another flood. Claire Mason says she wanted to leave too, but her daughter asked her to stay so she would have the support of her friends as she recovered. But Claire's worried children aren't getting enough support to work through their trauma.
So my daughter was stuck in a roof for 48 hours. She was pulled out covered in ant bites and a UTI. Like they listened to cattle drowning and hitting into the roof during 2 days. So, they are traumatised and they need specific services to address, their poor sleep, their low mood, their angriness, their sense of well-being. There's a lot that should be considered.
And although she's moving back into her home, it needs to be raised to protect it from future floods. And she says she's got no idea whether that's happening or not.
I have a beautiful home to move into on the inside, and I am waiting for that house to be raised, and I'm crossing my fingers that climate doesn't come knocking on my door between now and when my house gets raised, which, time is ticking.
As the floodwaters ripped through the northern rivers, tens of thousands of homes were going under in southeast Queensland too. Chaplain Nick Carroll led the mud army of volunteers who helped start the recovery south of Brisbane.
And it just didn't stop raining after either. So even though once all the floods went down, the rains just kept coming, and you could see people's anxieties rising when that happened as well. Like, oh no, not again.
Buyback schemes and compulsory acquisitions are underway across the region.
It is 6:20 and you're with Checkpoint on RNZ National. British and European politicians have hailed the latest Brexit breakthrough as a new chapter in diplomacy. It's an overhaul of the long-disputed Northern Ireland Protocol, which governs trading relations. For an understanding of how the new protocol will work in practice, consider butchers in England trying to get sausages onto the plates of people in Northern Ireland. Previously, they've faced a sausage sanction because of European meat regulations. So how does this change things for them? The BBC's Emma Vardy explains.
The sausage ban was one of those big headlines when it came to all the protocol drama that we've seen over the last few years. That's because the EU has a ban on chilled meats coming into the EU market. And because the border was then placed in the Irish Sea, effectively, well, you couldn't get nice sausages from GB into the supermarkets in Northern Ireland. What's changed tonight in the deal is really making it much easier for goods which are staying in Northern Ireland to be treated as staying as part of the UK. And so that will apply to sausages. But for goods that are going on into the Republic of Ireland, well, they'll go through that red lane. They'll still be subject to all the normal checks and paperwork that is required to enter the EU single market. So as I say, businesses will be looking at this as a win. Of course, it is going to make life easier on the one hand. So some of those barriers they faced in the past have certainly been eased, but it's not the whole picture tonight. A lot of this comes down to how businesses operate, how their paperwork works, whether they can realign the market now to go back to trading across the Irish Sea, and that might take a few days or weeks, really.
Fierce fighting continues in the east of Ukraine, where Russian forces encircle the city of Bakhmut. Ukrainian forces are resisting on the ground and increasingly in the skies. The BBC's Orla Guerin reports.
An attack helicopter going into battle from a secret airbase. We were given rare access to Ukraine's war in the skies with the Sikorsky Brigade. They fly low to avoid detection by Russian air defense systems. On a wing and a prayer. Then they strike at targets on the Eastern Front. We can't say exactly where. They bank left to avoid being hit themselves and return to base, coming in right over our heads. The pilot, Roman, has been decorated for bravery. He's 34, a Ukrainian Top Gun in an aging Soviet helicopter, about as old as he is. Roman has flown countless combat missions in this war. That means being ready to die and ready to kill. Do you think about the fact that there are Russian soldiers who will be on the receiving end?
There are no people on the ground, only our troops and enemies. So if they came to our country with war, we are just protecting our countries. We are not aggressor. We are victims who are trying to protect themselves. And if to win this war, we should kill Russian soldiers. We are ready to kill them all.
So they prepare for the next sortie. Spent casings are removed. Missiles loaded, 40 per helicopter. One inscribed with a crude message to the Russian leader. Well, the helicopters are now being refueled and rearmed. This happens every time they come back. As soon as they touch down, they're made ready for the next mission because the order can come at any time. And any mission might be the last. After taking the fight to the enemy, some pilots from the brigade did not make it home.
The Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni is demanding urgent action from EU leaders to stop migrant boat departures. It follows a shipwreck in rough seas off southern Italy that may have claimed more than 100 lives. Dozens of migrants are still missing. CNN's Ben Wiedemann reports from Rome.
The tide brings in wreckage of a boat, the wreckage of more lives lost in the Mediterranean. Among the dead to wash up on this lonely Calabrian beach, an 8-month-old infant. The 20-meter-long wooden boat reportedly took to sea from Turkey Thursday, with perhaps as many as 250 people on board, coming from, among other places, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran, and Syria. Fisherman Luciano Vincenzo was one of the first on the scene before dawn. When we arrived, we found 10 dead, he said, and as dawn broke, we found more and more. Only around 80 people survived the shipwreck. The rest, perhaps well over 100, either dead or missing. This type of tragedy should have been avoided, said the governor of Calabria, Roberto Occhiuto. Sunday, Pope Francis told the faithful in St. Peter's Square, "I pray for each of them, for the missing and for the other migrants who survived. But thoughts and prayers won't save lives." Since 2014, more than 20,000 people have died trying to cross the Mediterranean, escaping war, famine, repression, chaos, and hopelessness. Increasingly, Europe, including Italy, is taking a hard line on those from the global south fleeing their native lands. In a statement, Italy's right-wing Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni expressed what she called her profound pain at the disaster. But Meloni rode to power on an anti-immigrant platform, and last week the Italian parliament approved new laws making it ever more difficult for volunteer groups to carry out rescues at sea. What Europe can do for those in need has been made vividly clear by its embrace of millions of Ukrainian refugees. An embrace that doesn't extend to those braving deadly voyages such as these to reach Europe's shores.
All right, before we head off some of your feedback, this is on the issue of Aisha Verrall, the Health Minister, announcing that she has sacked Rob Campbell as the chair of Te Whatu Ora. She is saying that she doesn't have confidence that he's able to exercise political neutrality after comments he posted to his LinkedIn profile. It has divided you as an audience. This person says, thank goodness the minister has done the right thing, sacking Mr. Campbell. Another says, oh, wow, he just doesn't get it. Since when is a LinkedIn comment private? Mr. Campbell needs to uphold his professionalism, followed by 4 exclamation points from someone. This, though, other side of the coin. Hi, Lisa. I've always rated Rob Campbell. Think he dodged a bullet here. He's so smart, says John. Another big mistake by Minister Aisha Verrall. Rob Campbell is a hero. And also from one listener, from one public servant to another, good on you, Rob Campbell. Speaking out rather than staying quiet may have cost you your job, but there are many who agree with what you have said on the importance of the commitment to co-governance. Another in the same vein, it is outrageous that Rob Campbell has been sacked. I lost total faith in the current government. This will only benefit Chris Luxon, who wasn't actually offended by Rob's comments. What a beat up. Wellington storm in a teacup. Politicians are reacting again to a media beat up. And someone else says, sorry, big error of judgment by him. So that is on the announcement from Dr. Aisha Verrall, the Health Minister. She says in a statement that she's announced the departure of Te Whatu Ora Health New Zealand Board Chair Rob Campbell. I've raised with Mr. Campbell serious concerns about the political nature of his recent social media comments. I no longer have confidence that Mr. Campbell is able to exercise the political neutrality necessary for his role in Te Whatu Ora. That is about all we have time for this evening. Now, the Late News team's going to keep you updated throughout the evening. If you missed anything from the program, or you just want to listen back to some things, you can find us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Ko te kaupapa tuatahi popo, and tomorrow from 5 a.m. on First Up, after more than 400 mils of rain in a day, a Northland farmer describes how his herd of cows swam in floodwaters to safety. Do tune in, 5 a.m. tomorrow.
RNZ News headlines at 6:30. Good evening, I'm mihi o te pō, ko Evie Ashton tēnei. The former chair of Health New Zealand has described his sacking this afternoon as a mistake and an overreaction. Rob Campbell had called National's Three Waters policy a thin disguise for dog whistling on co-governance in an online post over the weekend. Health Minister Aisha Verrall this evening said she no longer had confidence he could exercise political neutrality. The extreme weather is sending the price of some vegetables, such as kumara and broccoli, soaring. And Black Caps bowler Matt Henry says the team always believed they could win the second Test match against England at the Basin Reserve today. New Zealand won by 1 run and next play a 2-match Test series against Sri Lanka starting on March 9th in Christchurch. Those other headlines. Our next news and weather is at 7 o'clock.
Tomorrow after 1pm on Afternoons with Jesse Mulligan, modern dating is going old school. Dating apps are a multi-billion-dollar industry, but more people are trying to find love in more traditional ways, like at the office. That's the view of Lakshmi Ringarajan, a former executive at Match.com, who says relationships that start in the office can slow burn, unlike the instant swipe left or right. She